Good afternoon, buenas tardes. My name is Talia Inlander, and I'm the Deputy Director at the Center for Immigration Law and Policy at UCLA School of Law. Before we begin, I want to start by acknowledging our presence here at UCLA on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our program today, Building Power from Within, a conversation with detained and deported organizers. This program was conceived of and executed by Law Students for Immigrant Justice at UCLA Law in partnership with the California Collaborative for Immigrant Justice and the 4 extraordinary organizers you will soon meet. The Center for Immigration Law and Policy is proud to support our law students' work and to help bring the voices and experiences of these powerful organizers to those of you in our community who have joined us. It feels particularly fitting to be having this conversation today in the wake of yesterday's announcement of the Biden administration's proposed asylum transit ban, a ban that abandons our obligations to protect refugees and embraces one of the harshest Trump-era rules. The inspiration and leadership of students and organizers feels as urgently needed now as ever. I'll now turn the program over to Elena Vermeulen of Law Students for Immigrant Justice to provide deeper context for today's conversation and to introduce our moderator and our panelists. Elena, can you please turn on your camera?
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Building Power from Within. My name is Elena Vermeulen. It is our deep honor to highlight the powerful work led by immigrant organizers who are currently detained in ICE detention facilities, those who are recently freed, and those who are recently deported from the US. The motivation for this event stems from a recognition that collective liberation is not contingent upon the intervention of attorneys. Our hope is that the following conversation will push us to think about how systems impacted community members can and will bring about the structural change our immigration system so desperately needs, and how they've been ushering this work forth all along. Our challenge to viewers, especially those who are legal workers and law students, is to think about our positionality, our platforms, and our power. As we engage in this conversation, we invite everyone to think about how we can each leverage our privileges to further and uplift the work of immigrant organizers. Our panelists today are going to share about their organizing efforts, how they came to the work, the challenges they face, and the victories they've won. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Edwin Carmona-Cruz. Edwin, can you please turn on your camera? Edwin is the Community Engagement Director at the California Collaborative for Immigrant Justice, or CCIJ. Edwin leads CCIJ's statewide campaigns, participatory defense, and rapid response that will help achieve the organization's mission of ending immigrant detention in California. Thank you so much for moderating this conversation, Edwin. Now I have the deep, deep privilege of welcoming our panelists. First, I'd like to welcome Carlos Sauceda. Carlos, can you please turn on your camera? Carlos is a leader in the Yuba Liberation Coalition. While Carlos was detained in ICE custody, he was the lead organizer for multiple hunger strikes at the Yuba County Jail. Even after his deportation, Carlos has continued tirelessly organizing, and his efforts helped successfully terminate the contract between ICE and the Yuba County Jail, which is the last county jail in California to maintain a contract with ICE to detain community members. Today, he's fighting for a pardon so he can return home to the US, all while working to bring greater awareness to the abuses perpetrated by ICE and detention center operators. Thank you, Carlos. Next, I'd like to welcome Pedro Figueroa. Pedro, can you please turn on your camera? Pedro is an organizer and artist currently detained at Mesa Verde ICE Processing Center, a private detention facility in Bakersfield, California, which is owned and operated by Geo Group. While working in the Incarcerated Firefighters Fire Camp program, Pedro fought the dangerous August complex fire that destroyed over 1 million acres and affected 7 California counties. After his work in the fire camps, Pedro was transferred to ICE custody. While detained, Pedro has advocated to improve living conditions at the facility and to ensure access to COVID-19 vaccines. He's currently participating in a labor strike that launched in April 2022. He has participated in numerous state and federal complaints against Geo Group, including for forced labor, retaliation, and assault. He's fighting to be freed from detention so he can return to his family in SoCal. Thank you, Pedro. Next, I'd like to welcome Serafin Andrade. Serafin, can you please turn on your camera? Serafin was a leader in the ongoing labor strike that occurred in the Mesa Verde ICE Processing Center. Labor strikers sought the California minimum wage and better working and living conditions. Serafin's organizing brought about many substantial changes, including the reinstatement of in-person visitation, congressional action in response to labor violations, and heightened media attention to the labor strike. Serafin was very recently liberated from detention. Now a free man, he's continuing to fight his deportation, all while advocating for change in the system that continues to hurt his community. Thank you, Serafin. Finally, I'd like to welcome Poon Yu. Poon, can you please turn on your camera? While detained, Poon was instrumental in organizing for improved detention conditions during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Poon also advocated for the passage of the Vision Act, a California bill which would prevent the transfer of immigrants from criminal custody to ICE. Since Poon's deportation, he's organized alongside the Long Beach Southeast Asian Anti-Deportation Collective and with fellow deported community members in Cambodia. This coalition fights to bring deported Cambodians home to their loved ones in the US. Poon is currently fighting for a pardon so he can return to his loved ones in the United States. Now I'm going to hand it over to Edwin and our panelists. Edwin, Pedro, Carlos, Poon, and Serafin, could you please turn your cameras on?
Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you to Elena, to Talia, to UCLA Law, Immigration Law and Policy, as well as the Law Students for Immigrant Justice for putting on this incredible conversation, very, very needed conversation. So without further ado, I know there's a lot to learn from this panel. And I'm, again, very grateful, very honored to be moderating this panel. But just before we begin, I would like to say to please use the Q&A function for those that are connected online. For those that are in person, please raise your hand, and Josh, who's there, will help facilitate the Q&A piece for you. But we want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about what has been going on inside detention, and then folks who've been free, folks who've been deported. So without further ado, let's jump right in it. This conversation is really about organizing. What does organizing mean, right? So this question goes for all four of you, Poon, Carlos, Serafin, and Pedro. And I'll start off with you, Pedro, first. What does organizing mean to you? And how did you start organizing? And before answering that question, at the time, did you know what you were doing was considered organizing? So Pedro, I'll pass it off to you first. And we'll have Carlos next. Pedro, can you go off mute? Well, there you go. Pedro, can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes, I can hear you.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pedro Figueroa, and at first I actually did not know that that organizing was what I was doing, but it began when I arrived to ICE detention, and started seeing a certain type of treatment from jail staff and even ICE officers towards detainees. Most of the time, they came in, addressed certain things, or did something that it just didn't sit well and didn't sit right within me, and it was just extremely unfair. And turn around and see everybody's faces, and I seen confusion, right? And it's like, wow, like these people are coming in and enforcing their authority and treating people like inhumanely, and people out of fear don't want to speak up. So started speaking up in behalf of other people and for myself as well. And amongst that, it required educating myself and educating other people with our rights, what we were allowed to have, what we couldn't have, and mainly the way we should be treated and the things that should be given to us.
Great. Wow, thank you, Pedro. Also, just wanted to flag this. Pedro's actually on day 6 of a hunger strike that has been going on at Mesa Verde ICE Processing Center. So Pedro is here with us, present. We thank you, Pedro, for being here with us. I know you're very tired, but we really appreciate your time and your wisdom ultimately. So thank you, Pedro. And then I'll pass it over to you, Carlos. When did you start organizing? What does organizing mean to you? And did you know at the time that what you were doing was considered organizing?
Thank you, Edwin. I started I didn't know it was organizing. It was in 2017. Organizing to me just simply means coming together as a group when you see something that it's unfair, something that is causing harm to people. So in 2017, when I arrived at the Yuba County Jail, I saw that everybody was wearing shower shoes. Everybody was wearing shower shoes and going to court at 3 a.m. to Sacramento when it was really, really cold. And then everybody was being placed in the freezer. The freezer is those tanks that ICE uses to place people when they go to court. So imagine being there for 8, 10 hours from 3 a.m. all the way to 4, 5 p.m. And it hurts, you know, it hurts to have your feet just in shower shoes, in shackles, waiting. So at that time, we didn't know it was organizing, but we started talking amongst ourselves and decided to buy a pair of shoes. And what we did is with that pair of shoes, we passed it on to someone, especially if it was an elderly person going to court, we make sure that he had those shoes on. And then it just spread to everybody. Everybody was able to pitch in. And with the support of the community, we're able to get everybody a pair of shoes so that nobody had to go to court in shower shoes. And that's how we started organizing, which I didn't know, but it was something that made a difference because it took some of the pain away.
Wow. Thank you, Carlos. And Poon, you're up next. So tell us a little bit about your experience in organizing as well.
Yeah, so organizing for me, I mean, it all starts with the Vision Act. The Vision Act, based on what happened to me, I went from prison after serving a life sentence, 26 years. And from there, I thought I was going to be free. I mean, the day of me walking out the doors, ICE came and picked me up, you know, so I never got a chance to really go home and just, you know what I mean, say goodbye to my family, my friends, my support team. So supporting the Vision Act, if the Vision Act would have helped people like myself and people after me from not going straight to the detention center after serving their time. You know, it's not only a double punishment, but I never got a chance to say goodbye to anybody, but it never got a chance to really really had the opportunity to just to seek freedom. You know what I mean? And had I had a chance to just go home, I would have just at least had a chance to fight from the streets, you know, instead of being punished from prison and then punished again, serving ICE detention time. So being the face of the Vision Act would prevent other folks from being deported, you know what I mean, not even having a chance to really say goodbye to anybody, really have a chance to really like close, just bring some healing towards them so they can at least say goodbye to their family, you know. And I thought that was unfair, and not only doing it for myself, but people coming after me. So that's the reason why I stepped in and helped with the Vision Act. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Poon. And yeah, and actually with Pedro, who we just heard from, right, fought fires and the August complex fire and risked his life, was also transferred to ICE once he was released. Same thing with Carlos, who we'll hear a little bit more about his story, and as well as what I know of your story, Serafin. So I'm going to pass it over to you. What does organizing mean to you? And you know, do you have anything else to add to what Poon just explained about finishing your sentence, you know, and expecting to go home and you're transferred to ICE custody? So pass it on to you, Serafin, who also, by the way, just came back from a press conference and is here with us. So, you know, major shout out to you, Serafin, for being here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Really excited. And, you know, for me as well, organizing, I really didn't know much what it actually meant. And, you know, except for, you know, you bring people together for a purpose, you know, in a nice detention. The purpose is always, you know, fighting your case, fighting against the injustices and, you know, the system. And so it's really hard to be able to bring people together and kind of like be on the same page about things. But that is one of the challenges that we face, all of us that are in detention. And, you know, because of the injustices and the oppression and the humane treatment that we suffer in there, aside from, us potentially being deported, people are able to come together, and people are able to realize that, like, look, if we come together, if we do this, having each other's back, like, something is possible. And that's how everything started for me, being able to see others, how we have a community in there, and kind of just having each other's back for whatever it is, something small or big. We were always there for each other. And coming from prison straight to detention, I was picked up a day before my release, and yeah, that's a harsh double punishment. I spent 19 months in detention, fighting my case, and it's just horrible. And especially now from the folks who are at Mesa Verde and Golden State Annex and are on a hunger strike, and I was a part of the initial labor strike, helping folks in there to organize and start that. It like I said earlier, makes me sad to know that they're going to these extremes to try and get some fair and humane treatment in there.
Yes, Serafin, thank you. And I'm going to come back to you in just one second, Serafin, but I think you talk about something really important, the labor strike, right? Folks working up to 8 hours a day and getting paid $1 a day. I just received a document of an account statement where you see it's, we talk about it, but when you see it on an account statement, $1 to be a porter, and that dollar being deposited into people's accounts. I mean, and thank you, Serafin, for all that organizing from April of last year. But, just to stay with you a little bit, and then I'll pass it back to you, Poon, about what are the challenges or the barriers that you face organizing inside detention and also after deportation? So, Serafin, what were some of those challenges? The $1 a day lawsuit, but there's also the working conditions. But what were some of those challenges?
Yeah. So, who's this going to?
I'll stay with Serafin and we'll go over to you, Poon.
Okay.
Great. Everybody wants to talk. Some of the challenges is being an organizer, being someone who is outspoken, who is vocal against, the system, against the injustices. You somehow, you're the target, because they figure you're the one. If they eliminate you from the dorm, from the group, then no one else is going to speak up. No one else is going to say something, and everything stops, right? So that's one of the challenges. Another one of the challenges is, like I mentioned earlier, just having folks to be able to come together and agree on something, because a lot of times, everyone has opinions about things. So that's a challenge in itself. And, also too, that a lot of the times folks are really, you're in this place where you're being deported. A lot of folks, who came from prison, who just got, snatched away from their families, have, responsibilities as, a father, a husband, and things like that, who may have been the ones, making the money for the household, that they don't have that no more. And they're stressed out about their families, how they're going to eat, how they're going to be able to pay for rent, things like that, so that's a challenge in itself. So just, for people to be able to come to the group with that energy of like, look, this is what we're going to do, because obviously they're distracted with their case, their families and everything else. Those are some of the challenges that, in there we face. And, out here, some of the challenges, again, it goes just back to, me personally, I already have a conviction. I'm only here because my case was granted by an immigration judge. And also too, I have to walk a tightrope that there's a lot of things that I cannot do. So I have to be careful that I don't get myself in trouble indirectly because I just didn't know the laws, or that I was, doing something that I'm not supposed to. So that's one of the challenges too that comes for me organizing out here,
Yes, and organizing outside of the 630 Sansom, which is the immigration building in San Francisco, which, you're still putting your body on the line for all of the folks that you work with and organize with inside the detention. So I'll pass it back to you, Poon. Now it's your turn. Talk a little bit about those challenges or those barriers organizing in detention, because I know you were also at Mesa Verde with Serafin, with Pedro, but also after being deported. What does that look like? What are some of those challenges?
Yeah, so just stepping into the immigration process, it was really a personal challenge, what I mean? Because I walk in, I'm thinking, hey, man, I'm the only few Asians that was there, amongst an abundance of other, mostly Hispanic detainees. And I'm thinking to myself, I mean, are these guys like, maybe pushing a hard line? You know what I mean? I don't agree with some of the politics that's happening. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a personal challenge for me, to really understand the whole concept and to trying to understand, how do I fit in this whole mix? How do I support, So it was really difficult for me, because I was like, man, no cleaning. You know what I mean? It's like, that don't make sense to me, because I feel like sanitation is really important for all of us. So that doesn't make sense. So, but at the end of the day, it's like there's compromise that needs to be made. You know what I mean? If we don't clean, they have to clean. You know what I mean? Meaning the staff. So it is really, really important that hey, if we take a stand, the greater good will come at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So, and the other thing is us, on a personal level, is like, how do I step in and help this community when I feel defeated, after I lost my case, after I know that I'm being deported? I'm in survivor mode. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, I feel, some days I feel like, man, I'm not doing nothing that you guys asked me. And these are my own community. You know what I mean? So this is my personal challenges that I have to really face, and I really have to really work hard not to fight against my own team. You know what I mean? Which is my own detainees. So it's the challenges come from within more than anything else. You know what I mean? How do I manage? How do I overcome and see the greater good for the whole community moving forward, not just for myself? So in looking forward, it's like, hey man, the guys are trying to fight for better living here. The guys are trying to fight for better wages here. So it's far beyond just myself. I have to think like not selfishly. So that's how I come to support the cause. Even despite me feeling like, man, I'm already leaving. I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, United States are already kicking me out. I mean, I can give that defeat mentality, but at the end of the day, it's like, what can I do to support the guys who's left and the guys who's coming behind me? Yeah, and me being here now after being deported 6 months now in Cambodia, the challenges I face is the resources we have here. I'm living in a country where we're faced with generations of poverty, you know what I mean? And we're lacking a whole lot of resources. So I rely a lot on my support team to continue to assist me in the States. So that's another challenge that I face, but the fight continues because I don't want to see anybody else go through what I go through.
Yes, Poon. Also, major shout out to Poon. It's 3 a.m. in Cambodia right now, and Poon is awake and is here sharing with us his wisdom and his testimony, his powerful testimony. I think you're totally right. I mean, we've worked, and a lot of folks who are on this Zoom right now, as well as the folks that are listening, have organized with a lot of people who've come in through detention and have been released, have been deported. And some people who've been released who were actively organizing on the inside, they don't want to go back. They don't want to organize because of what that entails, that trauma, right? And that's okay. We don't expect, and I don't think that any of the organizers expect that people have to maintain, right? And there's times where, like yourself, Poon, who's still the face of the Vision Act, right? Or like Serafin, who's out at a press conference, like that. We're greatly appreciative of your time and of your wisdom that you're sharing. And like you said, organizing is really a selfless act. You're doing this for other people, even when you're feeling the most defeated, right? So I appreciate you, Poon. And you know that there's a lot of people on this call who are supporting you, as well as our three panelists. But just to segue just a little bit to you, Pedro, I know, because right now of the hunger strike, what are some of those challenges? I know that there's been a little bit of the retaliation happening, not a little bit, retaliation happening over the past weekend. Tell us a little bit about those challenges and barriers.
All right. Well, like you highlighted, today's my 6th day on the hunger strike. Have not eaten, so I'm extremely weak, and so it's kind of hard to keep my mind and my body in one place. But there's a lot of challenges that we go through in here. I mean, just existing here, honestly, is a challenge. For me, I have 4 U.S. kids, 4 U.S. citizen kids. They're waiting for me out there. waiting for their dad to return. 3 of them are girls, and just, I having to be there for them, on the phone, and hearing them struggle with something, and like I can't be there, like that sends my mind somewhere else. Like I want to escape and I can't. And how do I concentrate in the injustices that are happening here in this place while not neglecting my children, which that's my life right there. And so that's always a challenge day in, day out, because that's where I wake up thinking of. The way I do it is I just remind myself, for them, what I'm doing is for them, to get back to them and to have an opportunity to be their father. So I have to prioritize, and that priority comes with tending to things right here, challenges, retaliation. Serafin mentioned it, like, you speak up, you're targeted. You bring forward a complaint, you're targeted, taken to isolation. I've been a victim of assault, sexual assault by staff right here, and like simply for speaking up. Like, how does that match up? Right now they're wearing a hunger strike. Like, I don't even know where I'm getting strength from. The only thing I'm thinking is I need my freedom. I can't. Sorry guys. I can't tolerate the cruelty that we're subjected to, that we're forced to tolerate. I can't do it no more. Like, I need to get out of here. And a lot of us feel like that. Some people feel like giving up. How do you encourage them when you're trying to encourage yourself? It's hard. It's like, this is something that's not wished upon nobody. Like, nobody deserves to go through what we face here, just simply for not having a paper that identifies the legal status in this country. It's not right. So, the challenges is there are a lot. Just existing is enough, here, because it's miserable. And, people, everybody thinks differently, and some people are not that outspoken. Some people lack a little bit of education because they're going through a lot themselves. How do you pick them up, while still sustaining yourself up? It's just, there's no words for it. We just got to do it. We got to do it. We want to be free. We deserve to be with our loved ones.
Yes, Pedro, thank you for sharing that. And for folks that are just joining us today, Pedro is engaged today on the 6th day of a hunger strike, and there's currently 77 people at Mesa Verde and Golden State that are not eating like Pedro, right? And Pedro, I want you to know that there's 131 people on this Zoom watching, that they're supporting you. There are about 20 people in person at UCLA right now tuning in, are also here to support you. So, and I know that we're trying our best to support folks on the inside as much as possible. And one thing to add, and then we'll go into our next question, and we'll stay with you, Pedro, in a little bit. But one thing to add is, when the hunger strike was launched last Friday, DHS and ICE and Geo Group, the private prison corporation, said, these people are rowdy, and they made this copy and paste comment. But something that I was telling Pedro over the weekend was, is being instigated, is wanting, the basic necessities inside the facility instigated by outside forces, like, stuff that's already is guaranteed through the performance-based national detention standards, better food that doesn't have insects in it. Is that being instigated from the outside? These are just basic living conditions that folks are requesting. And ICE, as well as the Geo Group, a private prison corporation that's own model is to spend less money to make the most profit, is saying this. And and it's something that we have to do on this webinar, and folks that are sharing, is really pushing back against that narrative, right? And at the end of the day, that model is the way that it is, and the only way to really fix it is to shut these places down, right? So I know there's a lot of, just to brighten up a little bit this conversation, because it's not all really negativity. Most of it is, right, because these places are inherently violent, but there's also wins, right? There are a lot of wins, whether they're small or they're large. Those wins we do want to cherish, moving forward. So Pedro, I'll stick with you, but recently, can you tell us what is your proudest moment or a notable victory that you've had while in detention?
Wow. Okay, look, I'll say it like this, right? Yeah, there are victories. There are small victories. You know, not to sound like a pessimist or just being realistic about it. It's at the same time it's even challenging to count them as victories because we're still here, right? But you know, there are moments that give us that hope, you know, and you know, I'll use last week as an example. It was 14 individuals that were partaking in a hunger strike, and when it came down to it, they threatened to move people that were not going to participate, and it was a really good feeling when the rest of the dorm is 24 of us total. The rest of the other 10 people, they say, you know what, I'm gonna support everything because they feel the same thing that we're feeling, you know. So once everybody comes together like that, that's like that's there's no words for that, you know. It's empowering, you know, because you see the will of people. Like it's a no-brainer. Like, no, yeah, I support this because it's the right thing to do. So those are things for me that make me proud when we're able to come together and we're able to push back on something. And it might not be our freedom that we're able to accomplish at the moment, but at least we make one thing known. And that one thing is that if they don't respect us, we at least respect ourselves, and we love ourselves. And we love ourselves enough to stand up against anything that's wrong. And when we see everybody come together and do it, that moment is speechless.
Wow. I just got chills. Thank you, Pedro, for sharing that. And that proudest moment, that notable victory, right? That's what organizing does, is making sure that we think about our collective well-being. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Carlos. We didn't forget about you, but want to ask you this question as well. What is the proudest moment or notable victory that you've had in detention, or even as someone who's been deported?
Well, I mean, there's little victories that actually mean a lot. So I'm gonna share one that was very it gave me a good feeling. It made my heart happy. A smile goes a long way in detention. So when you're in detention, you see all these people going through a lot, you know, depression, frustration, people's being deported. There's people crying, people trying to commit suicide. There's so many sad, horrible situations taking place that when you see someone smile, it makes a huge difference. So during the holiday season, thanks to the community, we're able to come together and make sure that during the holiday season, everybody had a meal. We got together as a family, we cooked for everybody, and everybody ate on that date. And to see the joy in everybody's face, because it felt like a family, it meant everything. Because throughout all the sadness, all the abuse and everything, to see somebody have that moment and be happy and know that that night they weren't going to bed hungry because we made it possible, it was huge. So that's one of the victories on the inside that I witnessed, and it meant a lot for me. On the outside, of course, ending the contract with the Yuba County Jail, I was there almost 2 years. So to encounter the sheriff and ICE telling me, you know, this place will outlive you, you will die and somebody else will take your place, because the contract was till 2099. So, you know, it was never ending. And they used to get on my face and tell me, anything that you do don't mean nothing. You know, nothing will change. We will collect that money and we will fill this place up with, you know, people, because that's their mindset. So on the day where, you know, I got the news that the contract had come to an end, it was a huge victory, because I always told one of the community members, even if I don't get to experience the blessing, I hope somebody else gets to experience the blessing. So I'm happy to say that there ain't nobody gonna be placed at the Yuba County Jail ever again, and that's thanks to everybody coming together. So that's a huge victory that I'm still enjoying today.
People told us that contract was never going to end, right? So don't take no for an answer, especially within the limits of the law, right? This is why organizing is very important, because you have to pressure. Sometimes the law, there's a limit and you can't go past, but organizing has proven time and time again, over history, right? That can make a big change. So major shout out to you, Carlos, for also Carlos is in a third country. The time difference is just like Poon's, very different. So it is a different time with Carlos right now, and still making the time to be here to share his wisdom. So thank you, Carlos and Poon, of course, for continuing sharing your wisdom and participating in these fights. So I'm going to just change gears just a little bit. We're doing great on time. So this next question's for Poon, Serafin, and Carlos. What is an experience that you've had with a lawyer or legal services, speaking about the limitations of the law, right, that has been particularly helpful or positive? And, as well as, was there a specific experience that you had with the lawyer, with legal services, that was particularly harmful? So it's a two-part question. So a great experience with legal services and a lawyer, and a not so good experience with legal services and a lawyer. So I'll pass it over to you, Poon, and then Serafin, and then Carlos.
Yes, thank you. So experiences with lawyers that for me is mostly positive. I mean, because lawyers are put in place to assist and help you. So definitely, especially to fill in holes and gaps where I don't know, I'm blinded to the law and policies that it's just new, So definitely they've been a great help, because while I was in the system waiting to get deported, we fought a hard fight to stay, to get my last minute push to get the pardon. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But we're still continuing. Our campaign is still happening, and the fight continues. And the other thing is, lawyers, elected officials has come together to also help fight, help push the next version of the Vision Act. Although it failed twice, they're still fighting. I'm still helping to advocate, because one thing that is guaranteed, if we say or do nothing, nothing happens. So despite it falling short, we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing, because it's unjust policies that happens, and we're trying to end that. And we're trying to end it not only for myself, but for people who comes after me. They don't have to go through the same suffering, not seeing their family before they get deported. You know what I mean? Get the same fair treatment as anybody else, where after they serve their time, at least be free and have the opportunity to fight their case from the streets. So both, even though the outcome hasn't been great sometimes, I think lawyers has been tremendously helpful. I mean, not just to fill in the holes where I don't know, but it's just they've been helpful in regards of pushing new advocacy to make changes. And I'm totally grateful for that.
Yes, thank you. And also, we're grateful for people like yourself, Serafin, Carlos, Pedro, who bravely shared your story, because real policy doesn't come with the darkness of voices. It really comes by centering voices like yours to make sure, like, hey, this actually is happening, right? It's not just our voices versus the state, but it's really directly impacted people who've shared. So thank you, Poon. Up to you, Serafin. So tell us a little bit about a positive experience and a not so helpful experience with a lawyer in legal services.
Okay, thank you. I'll start off with the negative one, which was for those who don't know, when you're in immigration proceedings, the government does not provide a legal representation for you. So that means you don't have an attorney. In my case, and for many other people that I've seen, private attorneys actually are like sharks. They take advantage of people in these proceedings because they know they're in desperate need of representation. And a lot of times they go to extreme measures to be able to, fight their cases and potentially stay in this country. And, in my case too, a private attorney was retained by my family, and, obviously they didn't do anything at all. And even the only one application that they filled out was done incorrectly. And for me, it's hard for me to put faith in people because of the system. And, I actually look into things, and I try to educate myself as much as possible. And so I knew something wasn't right. And, luckily enough, the Alameda County Public Defender's Office had reached out to me and they wanted to represent me. And so, by the time I fired my attorney, they were still actually able to pick up my case. And, a shout out to my attorneys, Rocio Sanchez and Julia Rabinovich from the Alameda County Public Defender's Office, because they fought really hard, as well as everybody else in their office who had, something to do with my case, and I was, eventually granted relief by an immigration judge. So that's my positive experience from a legal service, that, they're not just in it for trying to get rich and trying to make money. And, that's, for me, this is just what I want to highlight to the, people who are in law school right now and who are going to become attorneys, to show your humanity, that like people are in these desperate situations, and just don't take advantage of them, and for me, that's just what I would like to share of my positive and negatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Serafin. Before I go to Carlos, I just want to say, if folks caught a little bit of what Serafin said, he said, I fired my attorney, right? At the end of the day, it's your case. You can fire your attorney if they're not doing a good job. And sometimes people that I've spoken to feel like that it's the other way around, right? But no, in reality, you're the client, you get to decide what goes on in your case. And so thank you, Serafin, for saying that, for being empowered, first of all, to say, I don't like your work, I'm going to fire you, because at the end of the day, it's your case. If something happens to you, you have to deal with the consequences, right? So thank you for sharing that. And we'll pass it over to Carlos about your positive and not so positive experience with legal services and a lawyer.
Positive. The positive is my case has been going on already for 5 years. It ended. And I had a good attorney who won my case, not one, not twice, but 3 times. But my case kept going, and I guess he had so many things to do that it was time for a change. So I fired him too, but in good terms, And it's interesting because I met this beautiful, amazing person who is a blessing to me, which is my new attorney. I'm not going to put her name out there, but huge shout out to her, and an enormous heart, because she's an angel and she's the one doing my part in. She's the one that's doing a lot to help me out. So it's amazing when you meet beautiful people like that in this spaces, because it shows the heart that the people have. So that's a good story on my case. Bad situations with attorneys, kind of similar, like Serafin. I think everybody deserves an opportunity to express their case, and everybody that wants to be an attorney should be willing to at least give the person the time. A lot of people didn't want to give me the time during my case. Everybody was like, no, this ain't gonna happen. No, you don't have a chance. And nobody wanted to take my case. And I won my case 3 different times, but everybody told me no. So for those that want to be attorneys, for everybody that's an attorney, I'd hope that everybody deserves an opportunity at least to be heard. You just never know. Things could happen. It's the law, and you just never know what could happen. So that's my my advice. And the bad side, that I saw a lot of people not being able to have an attorney.
Wow. Thank you so much. And we're actually right on time. We have our final question to ask. This question goes for all of our 4 panelists. I'm going to start with Pedro on this question. And then before this, we're going to jump into our Q&A. So if you have a question that you want to ask, please type it into the Q&A chat function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to address it. But this question goes to Pedro, and then I'll call everyone on my screen clockwise for me. For Pedro and for everyone, the last question is, what is a transformational relationship that you've developed through this work, either inside or outside? Pedro?
Yes, okay. Well, for me, a lot of people seem to, like, from the peers that have spoken, they've sort of touched base on this, that, the help that we're able to find from out there, from those that are willing to take the cases, and a lot of the organizers outside, they we see a side in humanity that a lot of us are not really used to, and that's like kindness, that, and, I bumped into a lot of people in the outs that, while being here that they actually show like that there's actually good people out there, good people that want to see a change, and they actually empathize with our situations, and, and it reminds you that maybe the world's not so cold, at the end of the day. And also for me, that's just what it's been, like that it because everything's always seemed so dark, and bumping into all these people that are helping me out and helping out a whole bunch of other gentlemen under these same circumstances is just it's a sprinkle of kindness, in a dark place. So for me, that's transformational.
Great. Thank you, Pedro. Pass it on to you, Poon, a transformational relationship that you've developed through this work, whether it's inside or outside.
Yeah, so for me, it's like the transformation for me is both like on a personal level, you know what I mean? Because the transformation happened from within first, you know what I mean? I mean, if I can change my outlook, change my perspective on life, despite all the hardship, you know what I mean? That's the step one. I mean, that's a personal goal that I feel like I've achieved. You know what I mean? I mean, that's going to help me face new challenges that I'm going to face in this new society that I'm in now, and just the relationships that I've built along the way. You know what I mean? There's friends, there's Serafine, there's Pedro that I've done time with in ICE. That, you know what I mean? I'm so proud because I know that I've run into some good people who are still continuing this fight. And there's this support team that I have that's still campaigning for my pardon to get back home. You know what I mean? There's a lot of relationship that continues that helps me like see the world in a better light. You know what I mean? There's humanity like Serafin mentioned that I still feel like it exists despite all this hardship. You know what I mean? So on a personal level, I feel like there's growth that happened. And on a greater level, I feel like the support that I've gained along the way, and even being in this presentation, I feel like our voice is going to be heard on a greater scale, that maybe changes will happen from here on out, and I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that this small piece of my voice, our voice, can trickle down into something greater. So thank you for this opportunity.
Poon, I have the chills right now. Thank you for sharing that. And what struck to me was you said that the transformational relationship for you was yourself, right? And it's that is now allowing you to be a different person and to confront different obstacles and opportunities in a different light. So that really stuck to me, Poon. So thank you for sharing that. I'll go over to you, Carlos, and then Serafin.
Well, on the inside, I met a lot of amazing people, met a lot of good friends who I'm still in contact with. So, it's throughout the suffering, you find hope. And I found hope in the people on the inside, but also getting to know the people that was on the outside, speaking up on our behalf. I mean, knowing that we were taking punches on the inside, but that there was somebody on the outside speaking on our behalf meant everything. It gave us hope. It allowed us to continue. So that was an amazing thing. And then in my case, on the outside, being deported was one of the hardest things I went through. It was one of the worst humiliations I've experienced. And it was very painful, separating from your family, being in a different country that you don't know, and hiding and all this stuff. I was in a bad place. I was in a really bad place. And one of those community members from a beautiful group, Faithful Friends, connected me with this other amazing group of people, such as yourself, Edwin, and the Frida Yuba 11. And again, it brought that hope into my life. It reminded me what I had said in the beginning, that if I didn't get to see the blessing, I will fight till the end to make sure that other people got to see the blessing. So those beautiful connection, it's here in the community. It's in this space. It's working with people that wants to speak on behalf of those that are on the inside that don't have a voice, because ICE is trying to shut them down. Geo is trying to shut them down. the Yuba County Jail was trying to do that same thing, but there's people on the outside bringing their voices and creating this type of spaces to make sure that all those demands of, treat us with humanity, give us the things that we want, medical care, free them all those things need to be heard by the community. So I enjoy doing this because it reminds me where I came from, and it reminds me that no one should have to go through those ever again. So thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Serafin?
Yes. For me, this is a really, really good question, because a lot of what I have done, throughout my incarceration has actually, I feel, transformed me into the person that I am today, right? And I went from being someone who was a little bit more shy and didn't really speak much to now being like more outspoken, right? Seeing just the suffering that was going on in detention, and empathizing with everybody, right? I mean, I was going through it myself, but like Poon said earlier, that like, how can I help somebody else when I'm getting deported, and just seeing that in itself is just like, it really transformed me to be more humble and to actually consider others before myself. And that was a selfless act for me, that if I can, make someone's pain lessen, I think it would lessen my pain as well, because I'm helping somebody. And it actually helped me because when there's others who are not going to step up, if I'm going to be the one, I felt that like, hey, I can do this. I think that was something that I took upon myself, that like, I can be the one, to kind of carry the little torch or whatnot, for others, and maybe inspire others as well, that like, hey, like if he can do it, I can too, and that's the way that we kind of like build the community and build each other up, and I learned a lot from my incarceration, and I think now I'm able, being able to work with a lot of organizations, I think, and a lot of amazing people like you, Edwin, I learned a lot. I always ask a lot of questions, and now being free, I'm able to work with like more, like recently I was in a summit with folks from like Long Beach area and stuff like that, and just meeting other folks in the same, that contribute to the same space, for me, it's just amazing being able to be here, in this conversation that we're having. For me, it's just amazing, and it actually is something, the things that impacted my life are the things that actually have a lot of passion for me. And sometimes I'm told that like, I'm like angry at the system, and I'm angry, and, I'm just like, yeah, of course I am, is doing people wrong, my people and others as well, so I think for me, this is the direction that all this has taken me into, and for me, it's where I'm at, and I'm really grateful to have met, all the people that I have met so far, even though it was in, some very not pleasurable circumstances, but it is what it is.
Wow. Well, thank you, Serafin, Pedro, Carlos, Poon, for sharing all of your wisdom. For folks that are joining us virtually or in person, please give a round of applause to every single person on this panel for really, for your power, for sharing your wisdom, for, these aren't, rainbows and butterflies. This isn't a picnic at the park conversation. And we're really thankful for you for sharing all of your wisdom. So please, folks that are watching, round of applause to these four amazing panelists, my colleagues, my community partners. Thank you again. So we're going to go into the question and answers. I know that there are folks who were eager to share and to ask some questions for us today. And so we have a couple here for us. We're right on time. We're on schedule, luckily. So the first question is, and folks that have more questions, please use the Q&A function in the chat. This one actually, I think is for you, Poon, being the face of the Vision Act. Can you say more about the Vision Act? Like, what is the Vision Act supposed to do, and where is that at now?
Yeah, so the Vision Act, for the purpose of the Vision Act is just to prevent CDCR, Department of Corrections, from shipping us after finishing our sentence to ICE. You know, I mean, it's just unjust for us to serve our time, especially a person like myself who just served a life sentence, 26 years. You know what I mean? To be incarcerated and deemed suitable for parole by the highest stage, which is Gavin Newsom, and then not really adhering to his, you know what I mean, his words. You know what I mean? He said, hey, he's fit for society, therefore he should be free, right? Instead, I'm not free, I'm detained again. Not only am I being double punished, you know what I mean? And after being double punishment, but I'm punished from prison to ICE detention, and now from deportation, it's beyond double punishment. I feel like I'm being punished for life now. You know, it's a life continuing serving sentence that I'm facing, all because I was served my time, didn't get to go home, and then got deported. So the suffering continues for me. So if the Vision Act would have passed, it would at least give me the opportunity to fight my case after my prison sentence from home. That would have gave me a lot of closure. That would have given me a chance to hug my family, tell them I'm sorry for all the years of suffering I put you guys through. And thank you for giving me life as well. You know, if I can have that little opportunity just to give them some sort of love that I want to share, like in person, that would alleviate a lot of my pains. And where is it at today? I mean, the Vision Act failed twice. You know what I mean? And we're not quitting on the Vision Act. The Vision Act, we're looking for other authors to write, to repropose it again in a different ways, to take a few things out. You know what I mean? To focus more on why the Vision Act should pass and really geared towards the juvenile people. And that will give a lot of buy-ins for the audience to be like, hey man, this is not fair for at least a juvenile. And hopefully that next round it will pass, and then hopefully if that passes, it opens the door for new laws, you know what I mean, to let it grow even more as we move forward with the Vision Act. We are rewriting the bill as we speak, so stay tuned and support Vision Act.
Thank you, Poon. And the Vision Act didn't fail. Someone lacked courage to ascend to that challenge to sign it into law. That's what happened, right? That's what happened. It's the lack of courage from elected officials to do what's right. You know, and it's the same treatment that when you're in immigration, right? The immigration is just saying, well, you know, this is what happened in CDCR. You're a danger to society, but you're already deemed eligible for release. So why are you being double punished again, right? So thank you, Poon, for sharing that. And folks, at the very end of this conversation, we'll share ways that folks can support Poon, Carlos, Serafin, and Pedro, as well as stay tuned for other important legislation, such as other ways to provide feedback for the Vision Act, but also other legislation as well. So thank you, Poon, for your response. So this next question is open for everyone. Maybe one or two people can answer this. Actually, maybe Pedro, we haven't heard from you, and I also am mindful of your energy as well. But the question is, would you all characterize the inhumane treatment in ICE or immigration custody as forms of torture, such as psychological, physical, or emotional? So I'm going to pass it to you, Pedro, and then maybe if, I don't know, Carlos, Serafin, if you want to. Okay, then very quickly. Okay, so go ahead, Pedro.
Okay, it is torture. It is torture. For me, I could, you know, I was sexually assaulted by one of the staffs, and you know, facility does an internal bias investigation. I'm a civilian detained pending a civil matter, so I should have the same access to police departments, to outside resources as a regular civilian out there. This place doesn't do that. I tried dialing 911 to report the sexual assault, can't go through. Finally, my attorney helped me report that, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. And if it would have been the other way around, any one of us, touched one of the staff in the way that I and a lot of others have been touched, we would have been taken to a county jail with charges filed against us for an assault. So the conclusion of the investigation was not in my favor. It's not shocking because this is what they do. They manipulate and misuse their authority not to help us, but to protect themselves from the wrongdoings that they're doing. And, I can't make sense of it, but, there's a bigger fight, right? And one thing that I've asked, just one thing, hey, can you guys please just keep the officer away from me? That's all I'm asking for. Because every time it comes around, I don't want to disrespect them, and I'm respectful, and I try to be to the best that I can, but after any interaction, I'm left there with the broken dishes inside of me to pick up. I'm extremely angry, and I have the right to be angry. I feel shame. I don't know. I feel disgusted. And the one thing that try to ask is it's not even taken into consideration, not even for a little bit. What does the facility do? They enable these staff to continue doing what they're doing. Instead of putting a stop to it and putting a barrier, like, okay, hey, there's a restriction, please don't go in there, or please don't do this, they don't do none of that. If anything, they laugh at us. So our concerns don't matter, and due to that, them not doing, not being proactive in mitigating the traumatic, the trauma that is caused from the abuse that staff do, that's torturing us. They're making us tolerate and forced to see our perpetrators, our abusers. So for sure, it's a form of psychological torture.
Thank you, Pedro. Just very quickly to Carlos, and then we'll have to go to the next question.
Yes, Edwin, it is torture. There's a lot of emotional, physical, psychological torture that takes place in detention center. You're being denied medical care to start. So that creates high levels of stress. I was diagnosed with high blood pressure while in custody in detention center. And just real quick to share with you, they came at 5 a.m. to do a blood pressure check. And the nurse, after she did the blood pressure, said, this guy is about to have a heart attack. His blood pressure is so high, we need to take him to a medical facility. The officer looked at me and said, we'll be back. They left. 1 hour went by, 2 hours go by, 3 hours go. In my mind, I'm like, I'm dying in here and they're not coming. So I had to do all this exercise that I learned on my own, meditation, breathing exercise to calm myself down. At 4 p.m., they came and they were like, oh, you're okay, nothing happened. So, but it's like this disregard for my life. So all these things create, huge levels of stress. So it is torture. Emotionally, you're separated from your families. It doesn't matter if you win your case once, twice, 3 times like myself. They always told me, we're never going to let you out. It doesn't matter what happens. We're going to keep you away from your family. But when I said, hey, I told one of the officers, I can't take it no more. Go ahead and send me wherever you want to send me. He laughed in my face and said, we finally got you to quit. So it is torture because they have this power to do with you as they choose. And they always choose to treat you inhumane, that they make you feel like you're nothing to them. So it is torture.
Wow, thank you. I know we can go on and on and on about talking about the specific question, but also want to mind people's mental health and mental capacity. But we are arriving to, I know, unfortunately, the very end of this webinar, this important conversation. We have one more question, and I'm going to pass this over to Serafin and Poon. And this is a group of the majority of the people that are watching today are folks that are interested in being attorneys, right? They're in law school, folks that are interested in pursuing the legal field. And so the question here is, we mentioned how, lawyers can sometimes stand in the way of advocacy, right? Especially by assuming limits of how problems can be addressed. For those that are representing people in immigration detention in their immigration cases, what can we do better to support those individuals' advocacy and organizing? So this question goes to you, Serafin, and then after to you, Poon.
Yeah, that's a very good question. You know, a lot of times in my organizing, I would always keep my attorneys aware of everything that I was doing, just so that I didn't do anything that was going to be like not only conflicting, but like have an adverse effect on my immigration case. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, as attorneys, they're always very careful that they don't want you to put yourself in, you know, in any predicament, right? Anything that's going to be harmful to your case. And like, that's understandable, you know, it's just that it's very, very hard sometimes to, when you're experiencing these things, to be able to just like, you know, one, accept what's going on, and two, not say anything and do anything about it, you know? So I think, you know, the best way that, you know, this can possibly happen would just be to, you know, remind the client of always like, you know, do what you have to do, but at the same time, maybe just, you know, when there's actual things that can be harmful, just mention that. But other than that, you know, at the same time, I think a lot of the organizing, because there's limits to the law, that a lot of the organizing is actually is able to help things better the living conditions in the facility, or, you know, acquire certain things that we should already be getting in there, you know, whatever the case may be. So I think that's just, you know, I know it's a tightrope that we have to walk sometimes, but I think, you know, it's still being supportive to the client of, you know, again, empathizing, not saying that attorneys don't, but just remember that the folks inside are the ones that are actually, you know, receiving the harm, the mistreatment, all this stuff, you know.
Yes, thank you, Serafin. Very, very helpful. Poon, do you have any thoughts on that? Like, what's you know, what can attorneys do to do a better job at supporting individuals' advocacy and organizing? Poon, you're on mute.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the best help that an attorney can give us while we're inside is to hear from those who are impacted by these policies. You know what I mean? I mean, we have stories that nobody else can relive because they haven't lived it. You know, so and really understanding and empathizing with what we go through. I mean, the suffering that happened, the despair, the feelings of defeat. You know what I mean? And missing home at the same time. You know, I mean, it's so much that happens. But what I really ask for attorneys is to really, as much as you can, be fair in regards of highlighting this is the possibilities that can happen, and this is the negative things that can happen. Both needs to be highlighted. You know what I mean? And sometimes us on the inside don't want to hear the negative side. You know what I mean? If we push for this can happen. You know what I mean? But for me, it is so helpful to hear both ends. You know, so continue to really push for the things that we don't know. You know what I mean? Let us know, inform us as best as you can. So that way we have the knowledge and the power to make decisions for ourselves that what we think is the best move for us and our families. You know what I mean? We're already up against such a huge mountain. But with your assistance, definitely we can move this mountain together. I mean, I truly believe that, you know. So attorneys, man, just take your time to invest time to hear stories from guys who's impacted by all these policies. That's what I would ask. And together, I think we can definitely make the right decisions and move forward in a way that everyone benefits. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Poon, and thank you, everyone. Our esteemed panelists for sharing your wisdom once again. We have come to the closing of this conversation, and folks are probably asking, like, what can we do to support our panelists, right? What can we do to build that pressure? So just wanted to go around for, you know, maybe we can share this in 30 seconds, 1 minute, maybe. For Carlos, Poon, Serafin, and Pedro, what are some ways that folks can support you? I'll start with you, Poon.
Yeah, so man, I'm asking for so many things, right? You know what I mean? My campaign is still going on. I need support letters. I need you to call the governor, you know what I mean, to speak on my behalf. We need financial support while we're here in this new world trying to survive. We're in survivor mode, you know what I mean? And support letters, reaching out to elected officials, calling the governor, and all that will help us, you know what I mean, return home to our loved ones. So thank you so much. And again, I mean, I'm hopeful.
Yes, and then also for folks, we are pasting in the chat what Poon is explaining. You know, he has a pardon campaign going. Please support him. There are other ways to support Poon. Carlos, what are some ways that folks can support you?
Similar as Poom, I have a pardon application at the governor's office, so I need everybody's support, and I need you to share with other people, because all we need is for the governor to pick up a pen and sign, and we'll be able to reunite with our loved ones again. So you could go to the, I think it's being pasted right now, returntous.org. You could go to my page on Instagram, Ben Carlos Home, and you'll sign the petition. You could sign that petition, write a letter of support to the governor, and continue supporting all of us, Poom, myself, Serafin, everybody involved in this call, Pedro, and that's what we need, support.
Thank you, Carlos. Serafin, is there anything that we can do to support you at this moment?
You know, just like you know, everybody's been saying, you know, there's always that need of trying to get a pardon, trying to get this you know, this criminal record it kind of expunged, and you know, being able to, for us, because you know, just being here is like I'm in limbo, you know, I'm not really have any status or anything like that. So just being able to do that, if there's any way people can support me. And you know, also too, I just want to say, you know, for anyone here, just, you know, support the people who are on hunger strike right now at Mesa Verde and Golden State Annex, and you know, share what you guys heard today with your friends, your family, and you know, let's you know, let's fight together the system, you know, because as we mentioned earlier, you know, the law is not enough. You know, there's limitations to it, and you know, again, the organizing, this is what's going to build pressure and you know, bring about some change, like the shutdown at Yuba. So, thank you.
Thank you, Serafin. And last for you, Pedro, I know we just shared the hunger strike website. Is there anything else that you'd like to share for everyone?
I mean, well, yeah, I mean, financial support is always needed, especially, you know, under, you know, in detention. I do have a habeas pending right now, so if I do get a bond hearing granted, you guys could support by, you know, packing my court for me. And another way is also to contact Congress, you know, abolish detention centers, close down Mesa Verde and GSA, so that everybody that's detained could go to their families and fight the cases from out there. Like I said, a lot of us have mitigating factors that prove that we're not a threat to society nor a flight risk. So the only way we're able to do that is by pressure and the support of all of you guys. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Pedro. And also, folks just shared as well. Folks, financial support is very important. So for the next week or two, the Venmo for LSIJ at UCLA will be open. If folks want to spare, you know, your latte in the morning, $5, $10, that money will be split up among our 4 panelists. So please do so. The Venmo is in the chat. Thank you so much, Pedro, Poon, Carlos, Serafin, and to our attendees for joining us in this very, very important conversation, Building Power from Within, a conversation with detained and deported organizers. And this event was sponsored by UCLA Law Students for Immigrant Justice, the Center for Immigration Law and Policy, and the California Collaborative for Immigrant Justice. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you soon. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.